Why did Ramsay really lose the Battle of the Bastards? Was it solely because Littlefinger arrived with the Vale Knights at the last moment? In reality, he had already made fatal tactical errors. Sending the cavalry to charge was his first mistake. Ramsay grew overconfident when he saw Jon Snow's forces break formation. I'll admit his psychological warfare was masterful. Jon did lose his temper, but he failed to account for Davos Seaworth, who was far more level-headed. Davos saved Jon's life at the critical moment. At that point, if Ramsay still wanted to kill Jon, he had no choice but to resort to ranged attacks. Naturally, he turned to his archers, even ordering them to fire indiscriminately, killing both enemy troops and his own cavalry. But Ramsay wasn't foolish enough to do this just to kill Jon. The truth is, most of those cavalrymen weren't even Bolton loyalists. A significant portion came from the Karstarks and Umbers, two allied houses that had never truly accepted Ramsay as their liege lord. So Ramsay saw this battle as an opportunity to weaken his disobedient allies. Meanwhile, his own infantry and archers remained safely positioned to encircle the enemy. What he failed to consider was that by eliminating both sides' cavalry, he had completely cut off his own path of retreat. So when the Vale Knights finally arrived, Ramsay found himself in the worst possible position. Had he still had cavalry, he could have staged a large-scale retreat. But with only infantry and archers left, his only option was to fall back and make a desperate last stand inside Winterfell. Once the wildlings reached the gates, House Bolton's fate was sealed. In the end, Ramsay's downfall wasn't just due to Littlefinger's reinforcements. It was the culmination of his own arrogance, cruelty, and short-sighted tactics. I firmly believe Jaqen H'ghar is actually Rhaegar Targaryen. This is the real reason he approached Arya Stark. Otherwise, there's simply no explanation for why he would show such concern for a randomly encountered little girl. Perhaps he saw Lyanna in her. After all, Arya likely resembles young Lyanna Stark. That's why even when Arya failed her missions, he didn't kill her, as the rules demanded. Moreover, his infiltration of the Citadel might be because it houses vast secrets about dragons in Valyria. You may not have noticed in the entire series. Only he has red-black hair streaked with silver, and only pure-blood Targaryens have full silver hair. This deliberate silver streak truly feels like intentional concealment of his true identity. After all, as a faceless man now, he must abandon all original identity markers. Thus, he learned disguise and altered his hair color. Another clue concerns whether Rhaegar truly died. Robert only identified the body by armor and rubies, but battlefield identification could be mistaken if severely wounded. He might have been saved by faceless men, fabricated a corpse with identifying symbols to escape Baratheon pursuit, and ultimately chose to become no one as the perfect solution for their disguise. Arts would perfectly shelter him. Furthermore, only Rhaegar knew about the Mad King's hidden wildfire caches, yet Jaqen displays extraordinary familiarity with fire. His calm walk through burning Harrenhal proves he was once of House Targaryen. Why does no one suspect that Littlefinger hired Jaqen to assassinate Ned? This is the real reason Jaqen appeared in the prisoner cart. Think about it, a top-tier assassin would only disguise himself for a mission. Moreover, Jaqen claimed he was merely saving his feet, implying he had another purpose. Originally, once Ned swore allegiance to Joffrey, he was supposed to be escorted to the wall to join the Night's Watch, but Littlefinger never actually wanted him alive. Pay attention to the moment Joffrey ordered Ned's beheading. Cersei and Varys were visibly panicked, while Littlefinger, standing nearby, remained utterly calm, even pleased. Additionally, during the small council meeting, when the idea of hiring a faceless man to assassinate Daenerys was raised, Littlefinger remarked that it would require an exorbitant price, as if he had prior experience dealing with the faceless men. Thus, I speculate that he actually hired Jaqen and leaked Ned's prisoner transport route to ensure Jaqen would intercept Ned on the road and carry out the assassination. From a political strategy perspective, this was meant to sow chaos. Personally, Littlefinger did it for Catelyn with Ned dead. Catelyn would never learn that he betrayed Ned at the critical moment. Perhaps he even hoped to reconcile with her and exploit the Stark family's influence. This move was a flawless scheme, and Littlefinger was the only one with both the means and the motive after all. He controlled the treasury. Joffrey simply executed Ned ahead of schedule, allowing Littlefinger's plan to succeed prematurely. Who was the true mastermind behind the Red Wedding? You might think it was all Tywin's doing, how he conspired with Walder Frey and Rose Bolton through letters promising pardons and rewards for their betrayal. But what you don't realize is that Tyrion's strategies were what systematically dismantled House Stark. Let's revisit the context before the Battle of the Blackwater. The Lannisters were trapped between two fronts. Robb Stark, undefeated in the north, and Stannis Baratheon, marching on King's Landing as Hand of the King. Tyrion orchestrated the defense first. He crippled Stannis' fleet with wildfire. Then he brokered the marriage between Joffrey and Margaery, securing the Tyrells' military and food support with Littlefinger's help, while the Starks, having lost Renly and the Tyrells, were left completely isolated. But the masterstroke was Tyrion sending Myrcella to Dorne. On the surface, it was diplomacy. In truth, it prevented Dorne from allying with the North as long as Dorne stayed neutral. The Starks had no new allies to turn to. Robb was left with no choice but to rely on the Freys of the twins. Then came Jaime's escape, which cost Catelyn her most valuable bargaining chip. Karstark, enraged, slaughtered Lannister prisoners, forcing Robb to execute him, further alienating the Northern Bolton lore. The phrase too began to waver, and when Rob broke his marriage pact with the phrase, Tywin only needed to give the final nudge, promising Frey and Bolton their rewards. For the Red Wedding to unfold, Tyrion never wielded the knife himself, but his machinations left the Starks with no way out. What exactly was the Night King trying to achieve by sacrificing that baby? When the Night King touched the baby, its eyes turned blue, transforming it into a White Walker. But why? A mere infant can't fight for him. Here's my theory. That baby was meant to become the next Night King. Just as the three-eyed raven saw Bran as his successor, the Night King too needed an heir. Alternatively, the baby might simply be a vessel, a contingency plan. The Night King marched south to kill Bran, but Bran possesses the power to alter the past. This means the White Walkers could never truly win. To circumvent this, the Night King may have transferred part of his power into the infant White Walker before his final confrontation. This would explain why he was so easily killed by Arya. His strength had already been dispersed. The real power now resides in that child. There's another layer. The Night King was searching for a Night Queen. Unable to reproduce naturally, he relied on human infants to sustain his kind. Another possibility, the baby was being groomed as a White Walker leader. We know reanimated whites are mindless, but an army needs commanders. By converting living infants like those given by Craster, the Night King could create intelligent White Walkers capable of strategy and combat. This explains Craster's pact. He offered his sons, and in return, his people were spared. The Night King transformed these babies into advanced White Walkers, ones who retain cognition, wield weapons, and possess heightened combat skills. Notice how, just before Arya struck, one White Walker sensed her movement. That might have been a grown infant White Walker, swiftly matured into a lethal enforcer. Do you really know the truth behind Jaime losing his hand? This was far from a reckless, impulsive act by Vargo Hoat. He wasn't that stupid. The real reason was to bind himself to the Bolton faction. Let's revisit the plot. During Jaime's captivity, he actually negotiated with Roose Bolton. If Jaime were returned safely to the Lannisters, Bolton could use this opportunity to forge an alliance with Tywin. But Vargo Hoat had no intention of letting Bolton side with the Lions. Here's why. After the Mountain left Harrenhal, the mercenaries who had once served the Lannisters betrayed Tywin and opened the gates for Bolton's northern forces. These mercenaries belonged to the notorious Brave Companions, Bloody Mummers, and Vargo Hoat was their leader. So strictly speaking, he wasn't Bolton's subordinate, just a newly allied opportunist. What Hoat didn't anticipate was that these two historically opposed houses, Lannisters and Boltons, might actually form an alliance. Jaime and Bolton's discussions set off alarm bells for him. Think about it, Vargo Hoat had just betrayed Tywin to join Bolton. If Bolton used Jaime's capture as leverage but didn't punish him, and the two houses later reconciled, Hoat would be the first scapegoat thrown to the wolves. Moreover, Jaime was technically a Stark prisoner at the time. If anything happened to him, it would force the Lions and Wolves into open war. So cutting off Jaime's hand wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. By doing this, Hoat ensured Tywin would doubt Bolton's loyalty, sabotaging any potential alliance Bolton couldn't later sacrifice. Hoat to appease Tywin. I can't believe Varys is actually a merman.
Flames turned blue, and I heard a voice answer his call.
He shaves his head simply to conceal his fantastically flowing hair, because, as legend goes, a mermaid's hair is of an extraordinarily dreamlike hue. To avoid being discovered, he had no choice but to do this. And the long robes he always wears, they're actually meant to hide his fishtail. In the original books, it's described that he walks without making a sound. Perhaps that's precisely because he moves on his tail. As for why Varys is a eunuch, in truth, it's because merfolk have no gender identity. He had no choice but to craft such a persona for himself. Another point worth pondering, Varys possesses an extensive spy network. His little bird. He claims they are children, but have you noticed? We hardly ever actually see them. What if some of these little birds aren't human at all, but rather sea creatures? Perhaps Varys uses them to gather intelligence from the ocean depths, a place human spies could never reach. This would explain why he always seems to know more than others and appears to foresee events before they happen. Also, have you noticed? This guy has some peculiar habits. Think about it. Varys arrived in Westeros by ship, yet he always vanishes mysteriously during voyages. He constantly rambles about information, flowing like rivers and tides, precisely because, as a merfolk, his affinity for water is instinctive. Varys' connection to Braavos, the City of Water, is even more intriguing, because Braavos' sigil is none other than a mermaid beneath the Titan. Perhaps this has been hinting at the validity of this theory all along.